All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little 49er video. Make sure you check out Pig and a Pickle, two locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right. Um, I'm one of these guys that I'm very, very positive about the off season because it is just that, the off season. And there's plenty of time to have hand wringing, plenty of time to have negative thoughts. So I'm to me, what I see from positives, I put way more credence in the off season program than negatives because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And for some of these things, we're talking about voluntary OTAs. Now, this next round of OTAs will be this is the mini camp that's mandatory. But for voluntary OTAs, my bar is pretty low as far as success. If you're in great shape, that's good. But if you're not in great shape, that's not necessarily bad. Football matters when it matters, and it matters in July, and it matters in August, and it matters in September. It does not matter in May, and it does not matter in June. So, what happens in these OTAs, even if it's negatives, I don't put a ton of credence in OTA negatives. So, I just want to get that out of the way before we start this video because this video is about the negative things that we saw in OTAs. And this is going to take a stretch for me to get there because, as I said, I don't put if you're in great shape, that's a positive. But if you're not in great shape, so what? Who cares? I really don't care. What are you going to look like in July? What are you going to look like in August? And also, what is OTAs? OTAs are football without intensity. Guess what isn't worth discussing? Football without intensity. So with those things as the backdrop, let's get into the most negative parts of 49er OTA number 2. And I'm hunting for, negative thoughts because, as I said, I don't really see it as a negative. I see, almost everything as a positive. But we'll try. We'll try and we'll hunt for a few. All right, here's one. Deebo Samuel was there, but he wasn't actually participating. And, since you're trying to develop Sam Darnold and Trey Lance, and because there's a lot of unknown about Brock Purdy, especially his availability in September, and there's a viable chance that you maybe have to be Sam Darnold. It may have to be Trey Lance in week 1 because Brock Purdy may not be ready. I would have loved to have seen Deebo Samuel not just there, but participating the way that Brandon Ayuk was. And yet Deebo was there running around, but he wasn't necessarily participating and he wasn't building a rapport with his two young quarterbacks, neither of which who may wind up starting, but still, you don't know that. For all you know, Trey Lance is going to be the starter all year. Sam Darnold's going to be the starter all year. So I just look at this as a valuable opportunity to get reps, field reps, with your starting quarterback. And I would have loved to have seen Deebo, the number one wide receiver on this team, run routes and really participate and not just kind of nominally participate. So I guess if there was one negative there, that was it. OTA negative number 2. Ronnie Bell had a couple drops, and the 49ers had a bunch of drops. I would say Bell had 2, maybe Chris Conley had 1. There was 1 or 2 other drops in the day. So too many drops. You can't have drop passes. If your nameplate says you're a receiver, receive. Catch the ball. And I don't have a high tolerance for drops for my receivers. And Ronnie Bell dropped a couple. Conley dropped 1. Were they on the receivers or the quarterback? Either way, drops are not good. So that's negative number 2. Negative number 3, there was no Trent Williams. I didn't see Trent Williams out there. I would have loved to have seen Trent Williams. Another negative was that I thought Matt Pryor looked a little out of shape. I don't think he was moving as well as some of the other linemen that I saw. And Matt Pryor's a veteran. He's 6'7", he's 330. He was signed here to be a valuable reserve. And, as I said, his conditioning did not look terrific. Um, as far as another negative, Cameron Latou, the tight end out of Alabama, was a third round draft choice. And he, to me, has not stood out. Um, Now, there might be reasons for it, but I'd like all my day one or day two picks to really hit the ground and for everybody to go, ooh, and ah, and wow, and look at that guy. And I haven't yet to say that about Cameron Latou. So to me, it's not that he stood out negatively, he hasn't, but he hasn't stood out positively either. Nick Sikel had a couple of fumbles to Trey Lance, in his maiden voyage at center. And I think Nick Sikel is a good player. I really like Nick Sikel, but you got to make sure that center quarterback exchange is clean. It all starts right there. If you can't get the ball snapped to your quarterback cleanly and without putting it on the turf, it's going to be a long year. So Sikel had a couple of fumbled snaps. It didn't look great. Trey Lance was about 50% on his accuracy. He was much more accurate in the first OTAs. In this OTAs, he ran with the second team for the most part. Darnold ran with the first team. Darnold had some great throws. Brandon Allen had a flat dime. I thought he had as good a pass as anybody. Trey had a phenomenal pass to Ayuk. But overall, I mean, if there were 12 passes thrown by him, he probably completed 6, and 50% completion percentage is too low. So that was a negative. If we're going to look at, everything on face value, he could have been a little bit more accurate and he could have completed a higher percentage. Robert Beal, the young star, defensive end out of Georgia, who has unbelievable physical ability, 4.4 speed. Maybe it's because the pads aren't on, but to me, he looks really undersized, and I'm not necessarily seeing that special 4.4 explosiveness. So we'll see. I mean, I know he's undersized, so speed's got to be his game, and I'm sure he's got plenty of it. But thus far, haven't seen it, or if I have, it really hasn't stood out. Um, Cleveland Farrell, another negative, doesn't look overly explosive as an edge rusher. I mean, almost looks like an undersized defensive tackle. I'm not seeing pass rush explosiveness, pass rush bend, pass rush fluidity. To me, he doesn't look anything like a guy who went in the top 5 of the NFL draft. So that makes me a little bit nervous. Negative number 4, and this, I don't know if this is a negative, but to me it seems like a negative. Javon Kinlaw looks like he's about 290 pounds. I mean, he didn't anchor last year at 325. Is he going to be able to anchor inside against the run, keep bodies off of Warner and Greenlaw? I don't know. Kinlaw is super lean. Now, may wind up being a huge positive. And I've had some Niner people kind of suggest to me that Kinlaw's never looked better. But I'm a little concerned because to me, defensive tackle, you got to anchor inside against some big boys. And he looks like he's dropped a bunch of LBs and looks linear, and maybe that will help him as a pass rusher, but he doesn't have great foot speed to begin with. So if you lose weight, and the net effect of that is that you're less stout against the run and you're still, not much of a pass rusher, was that a good move? So to me, I got a little question mark about the decision to drop as many LBs as Javon Kinlaw did coming into this camp. As far as other negatives, the defense, Miles Hartsfield, who's out there wearing number 38, just doesn't look like he's in great shape. Now, I know he's viewed as a coach on the field, and I don't know what kind of role he's going to wind up playing. I don't even know if he's going to make the football team. He might be on the bubble, but he better show up in camp in a lot better shape than he is demonstrated out on the practice field through the OTAs, or there's just going to be a lot of disappointed people. And I would say there's no chance that he'll make the team at his current weight. He looks like he's carrying bad weight. We're talking about defensive back in the NFL. There is no such thing as carrying bad weight. You got to be lean and mean, and he doesn't look, he might be mean. He doesn't look lean. So overwhelmingly, I would say those are the negatives. I don't see a ton of negatives. Is Diamador Lenore going to get beat out by Darrell Luter? I mean, that's possible. Is Ambry Thomas going to come of age? I don't know. He's had a couple good days and a couple of bad days. So it's hard. Oh, I'll say the other negative is that Javon Hargrave secured the bag. He got paid a ton of cash. He's going to, just by that definition alone, is going to be one of the team's defensive leaders. And he hasn't been at any of the non-mandatory mini camps. And maybe it means nothing, but I would have loved to have seen him adapting to the new defense, bonding with his teammates. I would like to see him in Santa Clara. He'll be there for the mandatory, but it would have been nice. It would have been nice to see him in the mini camp, one of the two mini camps, just simply because of the money they invested in him and how important he is. And, the defensive line, as these guys, as teams start to do more stunting, playing more games up front like the Niners do. If you play a lot of games up front, man, your defensive ends are leaning on your tackles. Your tackles are leaning on your ends. It would have been nice, since Drake Jackson was out there balling and Eric Armstead is out there doing his thing. And, it would be nice to see Javon Hargrave. I understand why he wasn't out there. I'm just saying it would have been nice to see. And overall, I would say the other, if there is a negative takeaway, it's just that, Jake Moody's got a booming leg, but accuracy, how accurate can he be? And we really don't have the answer to that question yet. But he was more accurate in the second OTAs than the first. But that's a big question. Exactly how accurate is Jake Moody going to be? He's replacing Robbie Gould. Robbie Gould never missed in the playoffs, and he started a boatload of playoff games. So the bar on Jake Moody is set extremely high. Can he reach that bar? Can he be a success in the eyes of 49er players, coaches, and fans? A lot of pressure on a rookie kicker this year for sure. All right, hope you enjoyed our video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being a proud sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.